A Roland Fantom user asked me how I would set up a zone on the Yamaha MODX to transmit on a particular MIDI channel. So I'm going to demonstrate that here, and at the end I'll probably contrast that with how you would do the same thing on the Roland Fantom. I have an external MIDI sound on this little iPad over here. It's just running Moog Model D, which I have set to respond to MIDI channel 11. So we're going to create a zone here that transmits on MIDI channel 11 from the Yamaha MODX. If you've never done this before, there's a one-time procedure which we'll go through here. We go to the utility screen, pick Advanced, make sure Zone Master is on, make sure the MIDI I/O mode is on multi. You may or may not already have these set this way, but if not, you do need this. You do want this set this way for this to work. There are the I/O mode you might be able to do something else with, but it will definitely always work if it's in multi. The other thing you need to do is go to the MIDI I/O tab and make sure you've selected whichever MIDI out you're using. You can select either the 5-pin MIDI jack or the USB MIDI out. I'm using the 5-pin in this case. So you only have to do that once, not every time you want to set up a zone, not every time you turn the keyboard on. It just remembers those settings unless at some point in the future you change them to something else. So since we have now made sure that all the settings are okay for doing what we want, I'm going to hit exit. I'm back to the opening screen you would normally be at when you turn the MODX on. And actually you may have this go to some other screen. This is the default from Yamaha. If you've been using it for a while, you've probably already set this to go to some other set of patches. But it doesn't matter. You can do it from anywhere. You can actually create the external zone in any existing patch. On the Roland, it really makes sense to do it from an initialized patch. I don't think it makes as much difference on the Yamaha, but for consistency's sake and maybe its simplicity, we're going to go to an initialized patch anyway. So I'm going to hit the category button, and there's all the sound categories. I'm going to pick the category Init, I-N-I-T. Gives me all the initialized sounds. There are a few different ones for a few different kinds of things that you might want to do on the Yamaha. What we're doing here, it doesn't matter. Any one of them will work. We'll just accept the default. And we'll hit Performance Home, so we're actually on the edit screen for that initialized performance. We're going to put this external zone, it's going to be in part 1. Part 1 currently has the initialized no assigned sound in it. If you use something else, it would say something else there, it doesn't matter. Select that part. I'm going to click right where it says no assign next to the 1, or just basically the top of that little box here, selecting this part. I'm going to edit this part with the Edit tab. We're going to hit Zone Settings. We're going to turn Zone on. Now these other things magically appear, including Transmit Channel, which right now says off. We'll do that pop-up menu. We'll hit Channel 11. We'll close it. And we're now playing the Moog because we're transmitting on Channel 11. That's really it. There's a couple other things we probably want to do at this point. By default, this zone associated with this part will now transmit on channel 11 to the external sound, but it will also play an internal sound, whatever has been assigned, or whatever default sound in this case is there. So we're going to go to this field, internal switch, INTSW, turn it off, so that this zone in this part will only play the external channel 11 MIDI sound on my Moog app and will not also trigger an internal sound. I'm also going to go to the General tab here and put it in a category to make it easier to find, because right now it says the category is not assigned, no assign. I'm going to pop that up, and since this is my Moog sound, I'm going to put it in the Syn Leads section. If you're going to want to repeatedly do this in the future, transmit on channel 11. You could, by the way, you can also have program changes in here and other things. But we're just going to say transmit channel 11. And I'm going to store this performance. It defaults to store as a new performance, which is fine. And and I'm going to call this performance MIDI channel 11. So I know whenever I want to send on MIDI channel 11, I can just call up this performance, and that's what it will do. Completed. Okay, so now we have a performance that I can call up at any time that work has done to MIDI channel 11. As you saw, I could have put program changes in there, so I could have 10 of them all set to MIDI channel 11 and have them set to different mini Moog sounds. And I can mix and match those sounds with internal sounds or with other external sounds that are on other MIDI channels. Having created that sound, you can reuse that sound in combination with other internal or external sounds just as easily as you could combine different internal sounds on the instrument using the exact same procedure. So again, I'm on the first screen of default live sets. I'm going to go down to the factory supplied keyboard sounds on the live sets. Here's keyboard 1. I'm going to pick CP80. It's just a regular electric grand sound. Performance home so I can see it. It's just one part. Let's say I want to layer that Moog sound that I just created, that MIDI channel 11. Go to part 2, plus sign. I'm adding a second part. And I'll pick the synth sounds, and I will scroll down. And at the bottom, the last sound there is MIDI channel 11, our synth sound there. Go back to home, and you can see I've got in part 1 the CP80 sound, and in part 2 I now have a sound which is the external sound, and I have volume controls for them. Here's the piano, here's the synth, or both. So, and I can save that as a performance. So that's kind of cool that you can reuse your saved external sounds alone or in combination at any time as easily as you could reuse an internal sound. Okay, we're going to do something similar on the Roland Fantom O now. I don't know the Roland as well, so there may be an easier way to do some of this, and you can let me know if there is. Okay, so again, we want to get to an initialized scene for this. I mean, you can scroll through the various scenes until you get to an initialized scene. Since we know that they have them further down in the higher banks, there is a shortcut to go to higher banks. It's not the most obvious thing because the button it's just the enter button, which has numeric in brackets underneath it. It happens to also be a shortcut button to go to a different bank. Although there's no reason one would know that unless you experimented or saw that in the manual, I guess, because there's no labeling for such that. But anyway, one way or another, you get to an initialized scene, and we'll just pick one there. We want to create an external zone. Just go to the menu and say you want to edit a zone. So this is the screen that you want to get to. We're going to put this external sound in zone 1. Wasn't immediately obvious to me how to change zone 1 to be external. I can click where it says internal, and I can turn that on or off, but there's no way to obviously change that to external. The knobs don't do that. The increment decrement doesn't do that, even if that's the last thing you touched. The round knob doesn't do that. And even clicking here, where it says external, which changes to the external parameters, doesn't actually change the zone from internal to external. What you have to do is make sure the zone select button is not selected, and then hold the shift key down, and you can change the part from internal, which is represented by the red light, to external, which is represented by the green light. One thing to realize is that it's not that the shift button function makes it external, it's that the shift button function switches it. It's a toggle from wherever it was. So for instance, now that it's on internal, shift hit it again is how you'll get it back to internal. and it remembers this even if it's not currently lit. So I can turn zone 1 off altogether. And if I hit Shift and the 1 button, if the last time it was on, it was internal, it will be external. If the last time it was on, it was external, it will be internal. So I don't find that to be the clearest thing to do. There is no menu navigation or labeled button on the front panel that gives you any idea of how you might do it. You need to know that you have to have the zone select button off, you have to use the shift key and these buttons to switch between internal and external. There's no legend telling you that, there's nothing on the screen telling you that. There's no other way that I'm aware of to change between internal and external. There's nothing you can manipulate on the screen, which would be the normal way I was thinking of doing it. There must be some way I'm thinking of hitting this and changing that parameter. But there isn't. You have to know the magic combination of unlabeled buttons. But at any rate, we now have an external zone. And now we can go through the various parameters and make them what we want. And we're going to do the same thing we did in the other one. We're going to just change it to transmit on channel 11. So I picked under the external section of parameters out/PC, which stands for program change. And again, it's that screen that has the program change information and the transmit channel information. I'm going to tab on, click on the transmit channel field, which is on 1, and I want to change it to 11. There's a few ways to do this. The best way, I believe, is to use the round knob to turn it until you're at 11. 10, 11. Okay. If, however, you want to do a different way, you can also hit the increment button 10 times. That will also work. A little tedious, but it works. And here's the really strange thing. If you double-click it or hit the numeric button there, you can actually type in an entry. And figure, well, that's kind of cool. That would probably be fastest. I'll just type in 11. It's already got a 1 in there. You would think that either typing 11 would replace the 1, or maybe typing a 1 would add to the 1 that was there and turn it into an 11. But look what happens the first time I type a 1. It changes it to 2. It's actually adding. If I type 1 again, I've got 12 because I've typed an 11, which gets added to the 1 that was there, which is how it gets 12. It's a little strange. Basically, if you want to type in the channel number, since it's always going to get added to what's there, you look at what's there, which is in this case 1, I want it to be 11, I want to add 10. So I will type 1, 0. That's how I get 11. And so it's a little bizarre. And as I worked with this more in making this video, I realized it's not even simple addition, because if it's got a 1 and I want it to be 11, yes, I type 10 to add to it, and there's my 11. But if I wanted to change the transmit channel of, let's say, part 5, and I go to the numeric, well, I want to add 6 to that. So if I type a 6, will that turn to 11? No, it turns to 7. It actually adds 1 no matter what. It's not adding it to the number that's already there. It's adding it to 1. It's a little odd. Anyway, the best way to set your transmit channel is probably is to use the knob. Okay, so I can now write. I cannot write this zone. I can write this scene. Right? Unfortunately, there's no zone write, only a scene write. And I can call this, I'm going to rename it MIDI channel 11, just like I did on the other one. And then I will have hit OK. In theory, and there it is, it's playing. Anytime I hit that scene, I will get that external sound. The place this really falls down a bit compared to Yamaha is if I want to, as you saw in the Yamaha, if I wanted to add my MIDI channel 11 Moog sound as a second part, or a third part, or a fourth part to a a performance, or what Roland calls a scene, that already has other sounds in it, I could just add it like I could add any other internal sound. There doesn't appear to be any way to get an external routing zone out of one scene into another. So if I want to add this Moog sound to some other scene that I have that's got, let's say, piano and strings, whatever else it might be, I can't do it. I have to, again, manually specify the zone every time, which means not just a channel. Realistically, you're also going to want to specify the program change parameters, most likely. So you'll have to kind of maybe look at the one you already did, see what the parameters were, and then manually type the same parameters into the new scene that you want to use the same external sound in. So that is a place where I think it kind of falls short. If you're not looking to combine the internal and external sounds in arbitrary ways, but just want to be able to select an on-screen button that will play the external sound, both keyboards will do that fine, and I don't think it is necessarily much easier to do on one than the other.